The fluorescent lights in my auto shop buzzed like angry wasps as I worked under the hood of Mrs. Patterson's ancient Honda. It was past midnight, but sleep wasn't coming easy these days. Haven't slept right since I came back from Afghanistan. And lately, things at home weren't helping much either. My phone pinged on the workbench. I wiped my greasy hands on my coveralls and glanced at the screen. A text notification for Elizabeth. My wife's phone must be upstairs charging again. Last night was unforgettable. Can't wait to have you in my arms again tomorrow. Same place, same time, B. I stared at the message for a full 30 seconds, my brain trying to process what I was seeing. Either my wife of 12 years had suddenly developed a secret twin sister, or my marriage just hit a landmine bigger than anything I'd dodged overseas. The phone buzzed again. Thinking about your lips on mine. God, I can't get enough of you. My hands started shaking. Not the good kind of shaking you get from too much coffee. The kind that comes right before you do something stupid that lands you in handcuffs. I'm Nathan Blake, 38 years old, owner of Blake's Auto Repair in the dying mill town of Millbrook, Pennsylvania. Used to be Staff Sergeant Blake, 101st Airborne, until an IED in Kandahar sent me home with a Purple Heart and a permanent limp. Built this shop from nothing with my disability pay and pure stubborn determination. Elizabeth, Liz, she's a lawyer, corporate law, the kind that pays for her BMW and our mortgage on the nice side of town. We met at a veterans benefit dinner she was organizing for her firm. I was the poster boy, wounded warrior made good, local hero with grease under his fingernails and stars in his eyes for the beautiful blonde lawyer who actually listened when I talked about rebuilding engines. That was 13 years ago. Different lifetime. I scrolled up through the message thread. Dozens of texts going back weeks. My wife, the woman who complained when I left dishes in the sink, was writing things that would make a sailor blush. Brad, I need you inside me. Nathan's working late again. We have all night. Brad. Had to be Brad Morrison, senior partner at her law firm. Slick-haired, expensive suit-wearing piece of garbage, who always looked at me like I was something he'd scrape off his Italian leather shoes. I'd met him at office parties, watched him talk down to everyone while sipping wine that cost more than most people's car payments. The phone buzzed again. A photo this time. I'm not going to describe what I saw, but let's just say my wife wasn't wearing her wedding ring, or anything else. I set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. Walked over to my tool cabinet and opened the bottom drawer where I kept a bottle of Jack Daniels for nights when the memories got too loud. Took a long pull straight from the bottle. The burn felt good, real. Everything else felt like I was watching someone else's life fall apart through bulletproof glass. My mind went tactical, the way it always did when things went sideways. Assess the situation, identify threats, plan response. Situation: wife cheating with her boss. Threat: everything I'd built since coming home was about to crumble. Response: unknown. I could confront her, storm upstairs, wave the phone in her face, demand explanations she'd never give. She'd lawyer her way out of it, make it my fault somehow. I was working too much. I was distant. I never understood her needs. Or I could play it smart. I opened the drawer where I kept customer files and pulled out a small notebook. Started writing down everything I could remember. Dates, times, her late meetings that suddenly made sense. The new lingerie I'd found in the laundry. The way she'd started password protecting her phone. 3 hours later, I had a timeline that painted a picture uglier than a junkyard dog. This wasn't some recent mistake. This had been going on for months. The sun was coming up when I finally climbed the stairs to our bedroom. Liz was asleep, blonde hair spread across her pillow like a halo. She looked peaceful, innocent. I stood there watching her breathe, wondering how long she'd been lying to my face, how many times she'd kissed me goodbye before running off to spread her legs for Brad Morrison. Her phone was on the nightstand, charging. I picked it up carefully. She'd changed her passcode, but I knew Liz. She wasn't creative. Her birthday, backwards. The screen unlocked. What I found made the text messages look like love letters, photos, videos. A whole secret album labeled B, hidden in her camera roll. Hotel receipts paid for with a credit card I'd never seen. A second phone number linked to a burner app. But the worst part wasn't the evidence of her cheating. It was the group chat, girls' night out, Liz, her best friend Cara, and 2 other wives from her office. Months of messages about their affairs, comparing notes like they were swapping recipes, laughing about their stupid husbands who were too dumb to catch on. Nathan actually thanked me for working so hard when I got home at midnight last Friday. If only he knew I was working hard, just not on legal briefs. Brad says Nathan looks like a kicked puppy at office parties. So pathetic. Kara's right. We should have a contest. Who can get away with the most before their husband figures it out? I screenshotted everything. Sent it all to an email account I created on the spot. Covered my tracks and put her phone back exactly where I'd found it. Then I went back downstairs and started planning. See, the thing about being a soldier is you learn patience. You learn that the best revenge isn't hot, it's cold, calculated, devastating. Liz wanted to play games? Fine. But she'd picked the wrong player. I was going to destroy her world, piece by piece. And I was going to enjoy every second of it. The next few weeks were the hardest acting job of my life. I played the oblivious husband perfectly, asking about her day, kissing her goodbye, pretending I didn't know she was rushing off to get railed by her boss in some downtown hotel. But I wasn't sitting idle. Jules Martinez owns Murphy's Tavern, the kind of blue-collar bar where the beer is cold and the bullshit runs deep. We'd been friends since high school, served together in Afghanistan, and he was the only person I trusted with the truth. Jesus Christ, Nate. Jules set down 2 whiskeys and slid one across the scarred wooden bar. How long has this been going on? Best I can tell, 6 months, maybe longer. I showed him some of the screenshots on my phone. Look at this group chat. They're treating it like a game. Jules read for a minute, his face getting darker. Kara's in on this too? Man, I always thought she was a bitch, but this is next level. Kara Williams, Liz's best friend since law school. Perfectly manicured, surgically enhanced, married to a pharmaceutical sales rep who traveled constantly. She'd never liked me, made that clear from day one. Always whispering in Liz's ear about how she could do better. Here's what I don't get, Jules said. Why not just divorce you? Why the elaborate cheating scheme? Because divorce means splitting assets. This way, if I'm the one who screws up, she keeps everything. I took a sip of whiskey. She's playing the long game. So what's your play? I smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. I'm going to give them exactly what they want. A show they'll never forget. Step 1 was information gathering. I hired a private investigator, not some TV drama nonsense, just a retired cop who specialized in adultery cases. Cost me $2,000, but within a week I had photos, video, and a detailed timeline of every hotel visit. Step 2 was social engineering. I started small. Anonymous tips to the Bar Association about lawyers conducting personal business during billable hours. A carefully worded email to Brad's wife about her husband's suspicious behavior. Nothing traceable, nothing that could blow back on me. Brad's wife, Jennifer, was a sweet woman who'd never done anything wrong except marry a snake. She deserved to know the truth, even if I had to be the one to tell her. The first crack in their perfect little world came on a Tuesday. Liz came home from work looking shaken, her usual confidence replaced by something that looked almost like fear. "Everything okay, honey?" I asked, not looking up from the engine manual I was reading. Brad's wife showed up at the office today, made a scene in the lobby. Security had to escort her out. Wow, that's crazy. What was she upset about? Liz hesitated. She thinks Brad's having an affair. Is he? I met her eyes, watched her squirm. How would I know? It's not like we discuss his personal life. Liar. But I just nodded sympathetically. Poor Jennifer. Must be hard, not knowing if you can trust your spouse. The irony was lost on her, but I savored it like fine wine. Step 3 was where things got interesting. I started showing up places. Not stalking, that's illegal and stupid. Just being visible. When Liz said she was working late, I'd grab dinner at the restaurant across from their usual hotel. When she claimed weekend depositions, I'd take my motorcycle for a ride through downtown. They saw me. I made sure of it. Just a glimpse here and there, enough to make them paranoid. Nathan's been acting weird lately, I heard Liz tell Kara during a phone call. I was in the garage, but our bedroom window was open. Like he's watching me. You're being paranoid. He's too stupid to figure it out. I don't know. He asked about Brad yesterday. Wanted to know if I thought he was having an affair. So? Probably just office gossip. Jennifer's been making noise all over town, but I could hear the uncertainty in Liz's voice. Good. Let her sweat. The real fun started when I began targeting their comfort zone. See? Cheaters get cocky. They develop patterns, safe spaces where they think they're invisible. Brad drove a pristine silver Porsche 911, his pride and joy. Parked it in the same spot at the hotel every time, under the security camera, because he was arrogant enough to think no one would dare touch it. I didn't damage it. That would be vandalism. Instead, I left little calling cards, a greasy handprint on the windshield after they'd gone upstairs, a business card from my auto shop tucked under the wiper. Nothing illegal, nothing threatening, just noticeable. The handprint really got to him. Hotel security footage would show a man in coveralls walking past the car, but the angle was wrong to see my face clearly. Could have been any mechanic in the city. But Brad knew, and more importantly, Brad told Liz. He knows, she whispered into her phone one night. Nathan knows something. You don't know that, Kara replied. Could be coincidence. Handprints on Brad's car? Business cards from his shop? Come on. So what if he knows? What's he going to do about it? He's a grease monkey with PTSD. You're a lawyer. You hold all the cards. That conversation told me everything I needed to know about what they really thought of me. A broken soldier too damaged to be a real threat. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I escalated slowly, methodically. Started following them to their favorite restaurants, sitting at the bar nursing a beer while they had their romantic dinners. Never approached, never made a scene. Just sat there, visible, letting them know I was watching. The psychological pressure was beautiful to watch. Brad started looking over his shoulder constantly. Liz jumped every time her phone rang. Their perfect little affair was becoming a paranoid nightmare. But I was just getting started. The breaking point came during Millbrook's annual Founders Day festival. The whole town turns out. Families, local businesses, politicians glad-handing for votes. Liz was there with her law firm's booth, playing the role of successful professional woman and devoted wife. I showed up in my dress blues, full military uniform, every ribbon and medal I'd earned bleeding for this country. Walked right up to their booth and introduced myself to Brad's colleagues like we were old friends. Nathan Blake, Elizabeth's husband. You must be Brad Morrison. I've heard so much about you. I shook his hand just a little too hard, held eye contact just a little too long. Watched the color drain from his face as he realized I wasn't the harmless fool they'd taken me for. Nathan, Liz said through gritted teeth, what are you doing here? Supporting my wife's career, of course. Isn't that what good husbands do? The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Other lawyers were starting to notice, whisper among themselves. Brad excused himself, probably to change his underwear, but the real message wasn't for them. It was for everyone watching. I was Nathan Blake, decorated veteran, successful business owner, devoted husband. Whatever was about to happen, I wanted people to remember that, because what was about to happen was going to be spectacular. 3 days after the festival, Liz made her move. She'd been planning it for weeks, I could tell. The way she'd been extra sweet, cooking my favorite meals, suggesting we work on our relationship. Classic cheater behavior, build up the target before you tear them down. Nathan, we need to talk. She was sitting at our kitchen table when I came in from work, still in her power suit, hands folded like she was about to deliver a closing argument. Sure, what's up? I think we should go to counseling. I almost laughed. Counseling? Why? We've been growing apart. You're always at the shop, I'm always at work. We barely talk anymore. She reached across the table, touched my hand. I want to save our marriage. The performance was flawless. If I didn't know better, I might have believed her, but I'd read her messages, seen the photos. This wasn't about saving anything. This was about control. Okay, I said, if that's what you want. Her smile was radiant, victorious. She thought she had me right where she wanted me. There's this great therapist downtown, Dr. Sarah Chen. I've already made an appointment for Friday evening. Friday evening, the same night she usually met Brad at the Riverside Hotel. Interesting timing. Sounds perfect. That Friday, I dressed carefully. Clean jeans, button-down shirt, my best boots. Wanted to look like the kind of man worth fighting for. The kind of man whose wife wouldn't throw away 12 years for some silver-haired snake in an expensive suit. The counseling office was in a converted Victorian mansion downtown. All hardwood floors and tasteful artwork. Dr. Chen was a small, serious woman who looked like she'd heard every sob story in the book. So, she said, settling into her chair with a legal pad. Elizabeth tells me you two are having some communication issues. Communication issues, I repeated. That's one way to put it. Liz shot me a warning look. Nathan's been very distant lately, working late, not talking about his feelings. I think his military experience might be affecting our relationship, and there it was, the PTSD card. Make me the broken one, the problem that needed fixing. Classic manipulation. Nathan, how do you feel about that assessment? I looked at Dr. Chen, then at my wife. Sweet, innocent Elizabeth, who just wanted to save our marriage. I think my wife is absolutely right. I have been distant, probably because I found out she's been fucking her boss for the past 6 months. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Chen's pen stopped moving. Liz's face went white, then red, then white again. Nathan, that's, what, not true? I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the screenshots. Should I read some of your text messages out loud? Or maybe show Dr. Chen the photos you've been sending to Brad Morrison? Liz stood up so fast her chair fell over. You went through my phone? Your phone? The one you left charging next to our bed? The one that's been getting messages all hours of the night? I turned to Dr. Chen. Doctor, in your professional opinion, when a spouse discovers evidence of adultery, are they obligated to ignore it? Dr. Chen looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. Perhaps we should. No, Liz said. We're done here. She grabbed her purse, headed for the door. This was a mistake. The only mistake, I called after her, was thinking I was too stupid to figure it out. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Dr. Chen looked at me sympathetically. I'm sorry, Nathan. That must have been very painful to discover. The discovery? No, that was just information. The painful part was realizing the woman I loved never existed in the first place. I paid for the session and left. Drove straight to Murphy's Tavern, where Jules was waiting with a bottle of my favorite whiskey. How'd it go? Phase 1 complete. She knows I know. What's Phase 2? I smiled and raised my glass. Now she gets to find out what happens when you poke a sleeping bear. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. Liz had packed a bag and left sometime during the night. No note, no explanation, just gone. Her absence was actually a relief, gave me time to implement the next part of my plan. I spent the weekend making phone calls, not to lawyers, that would come later, to people, friends, family, neighbors, the kind of informal network that keeps small towns running. Hey, Mrs. Patterson, yeah, it's Nathan Blake. Listen, I wanted you to hear this from me before the gossip mill gets going. Liz and I are having some problems. She's been seeing someone from work. Oh, Nathan, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? Just wanted you to know in case people start talking. You know how rumors can get twisted. I made 27 calls that weekend. By Monday morning, half the town knew that Elizabeth Blake, the high and mighty lawyer who looked down her nose at the rest of us, was cheating on her war hero husband. The court of public opinion is swift and merciless in a place like Millbrook. By Tuesday, people were crossing the street to avoid talking to her. By Wednesday, the local newspaper had picked up the story. Not the details, but enough to make it clear that one of the town's success stories was falling apart. But I was just getting warmed up. Thursday evening, I got a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Riverside Hotel Bar, 8 p.m. Come alone. I knew who it was before I even showed up. Brad Morrison, looking like he hadn't slept in days, sitting in a corner booth nursing what looked like his fourth or fifth scotch. Blake, he didn't stand up, didn't offer to shake hands. Sit down. I'll stand. This won't take long. You're destroying people's lives here. Funny, I thought you two were handling that part yourselves. He leaned forward, tried to look intimidating. Hard to pull off when you're drunk and scared. Elizabeth is a good woman. She made a mistake. A mistake? Which part was the mistake, Brad? The 6 months of fucking behind my back, or getting caught? She was going to leave you anyway. You're not good enough for her. Never were. And there it was. The truth he'd been dying to say. You know what, Brad? You're absolutely right. I'm not good enough for her. I'm just a broken-down soldier who fixes cars for a living. What could I possibly have that a successful lawyer would want? He smiled, thinking he'd won something. Exactly. But here's the thing about us broken-down soldiers. We know how to fight, and we know how to win. I leaned down, got close enough to smell the fierce sweat under his expensive cologne. You want Elizabeth? You can have her. But you're going to pay for her. What's that supposed to mean? It means your wife filed for divorce this morning. It means your law firm is conducting an internal investigation into your relationship with a subordinate. It means everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of man you are. I straightened up, smiled down at him. How's that working out for you? I left him sitting there and walked out into the night air. Phase 2 was complete. Time for the finale. The annual Millbrook Founders Day celebration was exactly the kind of small-town spectacle that Norman Rockwell would have painted if Norman Rockwell had been into public humiliation and social destruction. Main Street was blocked off for the festival, lined with booths selling everything from homemade pies to hand-carved duck decoys. The whole town turned out for this thing. Families, teenagers, old-timers who remembered when the mills were still running. It was the one day of the year when everyone pretended we were still the thriving community we used to be. Perfect audience for what I had planned. I'd spent the week preparing. Not just the logistics, though those were important, but the psychology. See, the thing about public confrontations is timing. You need the right moment, the right crowd, the right emotional temperature. Too early and people aren't invested. Too late and they've moved on to other entertainment. Liz had been staying at Kara's house since our counseling session blew up. According to my sources, and in a town this size, everyone's a source, she was planning to file for divorce and claim I was mentally unstable. PTSD, they'd say. Violent tendencies. Poor woman had to flee for her safety. Classic strategy. Paint the victim as the aggressor, make the betrayed spouse look like the real problem. Might have worked too, if I hadn't been 3 steps ahead. The festival kicked off at noon, with the usual speeches from local politicians. I worked my booth. Blake's Auto Repair was a sponsor, had to maintain appearances, and waited. Liz would show up eventually. She was too proud to hide forever, and her law firm had a booth here too. She arrived at 2:30, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, wearing a sundress that probably cost more than most people's car payments. Kara was with her, playing the supportive best friend role to the hilt. They set up at the law firm booth, handing out branded pens and talking to potential clients, playing the part of successful professional women, pillars of the community, the kind of people who made this town better just by living here. I watched them work the crowd, saw how people responded. Some were sympathetic, poor Elizabeth, dealing with her unstable husband. Others were cooler, more distant. The rumor mill had been working overtime, and not everyone was buying the story she was selling. At 4 o'clock, the festival organizers announced the traditional community recognition ceremony. Local business owners, volunteers, anyone who'd contributed to the town over the past year got their moment in the spotlight. My name was on the list. Had been for 3 years running. Veteran, small business owner, employer of 6 local guys who might otherwise be collecting unemployment. I'd been planning to skip it this year, but circumstances had changed. Ladies and gentlemen, our next honoree is Nathan Blake, owner of Blake's Auto Repair and decorated veteran of the war in Afghanistan. I walked up to the small stage they'd set up in front of the courthouse, waved to the crowd. Friendly applause, nothing too enthusiastic. These people had known me for years. I was just Nate, the guy who fixed their cars and minded his own business. Thank you, I said into the microphone. It's always an honor to be recognized by the community that's given me so much. Standard speech so far. People were already starting to look away, thinking about funnel cakes and the band that was supposed to start playing at 5. I've been thinking a lot lately about what community means, about trust, loyalty, the bonds that hold us together. I found Liz in the crowd, made eye contact. About what happens when those bonds are broken. She was staring at me now, her face pale. Kara was tugging at her arm, probably suggesting they leave, but it was too late for that. See, I used to think I knew what betrayal looked like. I thought it was an enemy soldier, or a roadside bomb, or a politician who sends you to war and then forgets about you when you come home. I paused, let the silence build. Turns out, sometimes betrayal wears a wedding dress. The crowd was paying attention now. You could feel the shift, that electric moment when people realize they're about to witness something memorable. 3 weeks ago, I discovered that my wife of 12 years has been having an affair with her boss. Not a one-time mistake, a calculated, ongoing deception that involved lying to my face every single day. I pulled out my phone, held it up. I have the text messages, I have the photos, I have hotel receipts and credit card statements and a whole digital trail of evidence that would make the FBI proud. The silence was absolute, 300 people holding their breath, waiting to see what came next. Liz was pushing through the crowd now, trying to reach the stage. But the people around her weren't moving aside. They wanted to hear this. Now, I could have handled this quietly, could have hired a lawyer, filed for divorce, split everything down the middle like civilized people do. But here's the thing about betrayal. It's not a civil matter, it's personal. And when someone you love spits in your face, sometimes the only appropriate response is to spit back. I spotted Brad in the crowd, standing next to his soon-to-be ex-wife Jennifer. He looked like he wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The crowd had formed a circle around the stage, a human amphitheater for the show I was putting on. So let me tell you all a story about Brad Morrison, senior partner at Morrison, Hughes and Associates. Married man, father of two, pillar of the community. And let me tell you about Elizabeth Blake, my wife, who's been spreading her legs for him every Tuesday and Friday for the past 6 months. Someone in the crowd gasped. Others started murmuring, the sound building like distant thunder. You want details? I've got details. The Riverside Hotel, room 237. The Marina Restaurant, corner booth, every other Wednesday. The parking garage behind the courthouse, because apparently my wife gets off on the risk of getting caught. Liz had reached the front of the crowd now, her face twisted with rage and humiliation. Nathan, stop this! You're embarrassing yourself. Embarrassing myself? I laughed, and it echoed through the speakers. Honey, I'm not the one who's been posting naked pictures in a group chat with her girlfriends, comparing notes about whose husband is the biggest fool. I pulled up the screenshots on my phone, held them high enough for the crowd to see. Should I read some of these messages out loud? Or maybe we should talk about the betting pool you and your friends had going. Who could get away with cheating the longest? The crowd was getting restless now, angry. These were working people, family people, the kind of folks who still believed marriage meant something. What I was describing wasn't just adultery, it was mockery of everything they held sacred. Nathan, please! Liz was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Don't do this. Don't do what? Tell the truth? Share the real Elizabeth Blake with everyone? The one who called me a damaged loser in her text messages? The one who said I was too stupid and broken to ever figure it out? Brad was trying to push through the crowd now, probably planning some kind of rescue mission. But the people around him weren't having it. Someone, I think it was Mike Kowalski from the hardware store, shoved him back. You want to know the really funny part? I was building to the climax now, could feel the crowd hanging on every word. She was planning to divorce me anyway. This whole thing, the counseling, the fake reconciliation, it was all designed to make me look like the bad guy, paint me as the unstable veteran who couldn't handle civilian life. I looked directly at Liz, smiled the coldest smile I could manage. Sorry, sweetheart. Turns out this broken soldier was a little smarter than you thought. The crowd erupted. Not applause, something angrier, more primal. The sound of a community turning on someone who'd violated their trust. Brad finally broke through, charged toward the stage. You son of a bitch! I'll sue you for everything you have. With what law firm? I asked. Because Morrison, Hughes and Associates fired you yesterday. Something about violating the company's ethics policy. Turns out sleeping with subordinates is bad for business. He stopped dead, the fight going out of him like air from a punctured tire. Oh, and Brad? Your wife's lawyer wants to talk to you about those hidden assets you've been hiding in the Cayman Islands. Funny thing about having friends in the banking industry, sometimes information just falls into your lap. Jennifer Morrison stepped forward from the crowd, her face a mask of cold fury. You bastard. 22 years of marriage, and this is how I find out? The crowd was turning ugly now. Someone threw a cup of beer at Brad. Others were shouting, calling him and Liz names I won't repeat. The festival organizers were trying to restore order, but it was too late for that. I held up my hand, and amazingly, the crowd quieted down. I want everyone here to remember this moment, I said into the microphone. Remember what happens when you think you can lie, cheat, and steal without consequences. Remember that actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences come with interest. I set the microphone down and walked off the stage. The crowd parted before me like the Red Sea, people reaching out to pat my shoulder, offer words of support. Behind me, I could hear Liz sobbing, Kara trying to comfort her, Brad arguing with his wife, the sound of 3 lives imploding in real time. I walked straight to my truck, climbed in, and drove away from the chaos I'd created. In my rearview mirror, I could see people surrounding Liz and Brad, the crowd's anger finally finding its target. By the time I got home, my phone was buzzing with text messages. Friends, customers, people I barely knew, all wanting to tell me they were on my side. The video was already online. Someone had live-streamed the whole thing, and it was spreading faster than wildfire. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon, sat on my porch, and watched the sun set over the town where I'd just destroyed 2 people's lives. Did I feel guilty? Not for a second. They'd made their choices, and I'd simply made sure those choices had consequences. The next morning, I found out that Liz had checked into a hotel 2 towns over. Brad was staying with his brother in Pittsburgh. Kara had deleted all her social media accounts and wasn't answering her phone. The law firm released a statement distancing themselves from both Brad and Liz. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about infidelity in high places. 3 other wives came forward with stories about their husbands' affairs, apparently inspired by my public confession to do some investigating of their own. I'd started a revolution, and I was the only one left standing. 6 months later, the divorce was final. Liz got nothing. Turns out adultery clauses still mean something in Pennsylvania, especially when you have overwhelming evidence. Brad's law license was suspended pending an ethics investigation. His wife took him for everything in their divorce, including the house and his precious Porsche. I kept the auto shop, the house, and my dignity. More importantly, I kept the respect of my community. People still bring their cars to me, still shake my hand at the grocery store, still treat me like a man worth knowing, because that's what happens when you fight back. When you refuse to be the victim, refuse to go quietly into the night, while other people destroy everything you've built. They called me the villain in their story. Turns out, I was perfectly fine with that. Sometimes the villain wins. Sometimes the villain deserves to win. And sometimes, being the villain is the only way to be the hero of your own story.